Okay, let's now look at the retrieve code. First, let's have a revisit our table. In terms of a table, what does it consist of? Well, there's a table body, and then the first few items are for headings, so it's a table row, but these have table headings that are for columns, and we had those A, B, B, C, C. Then it came down here to the next table row. This is actually data, so these are TDs in here, and in fact, this section and this section are the same, except there's different data in it. So in terms of a program, you'd only have one section like this, and then you would have it in a loop so that it continually produced new data each time, and you'd have to make sure that the right data went into the right cell. Okay, let's go to the code that I've given you, and again, yes, you can just copy and paste it. Needs to be a bit of tidying up to do with it. Talk about that in a moment. So this is the code all the way down to there. I'm just going to copy it, go across to Dreamweaver, file, new, PHP, create. Thank you for all that, but I'm going to get rid of it because I'm going to replace it. And there's the code. All right, let's go through this code step at a time so that you can put all your comments in as you should. All right, we better save it first. So this is going to be called Ex3 Retrieve. Let's make sure we've done that. File, save. And go into the practice folder. It's already in the practice folder, good. And say save. Then we continue through what we're doing here. So let's have a look at this. And all right, so we have to start here. We have the table body. Notice this is name, age, and suburb. That is on the screen for the human to read. So this is not camel case or Hungarian notation. It is words for people to read. Whereas once we go inside the program, yes, we need to make sure we're done. So PHP starts. File, I'd rather that to be $file data. File just being the Hungarian part of the name. We are opening this time for exercise 3 data.txt, which is a file we created with our save program, and we're opening it for read this time, so there's an R there for read. Okay, what this does, fgets is a file get. It actually gets data from the file, and again that should be file data, and it says I will read up until I've seen the end of a line, in other words /r /n, or if I get as far as 1024 characters. And for the data that you'll put in there, it'll never get to 1024 characters. All right, so each text record is a line from your data. All right. We then decide that the row is going to start at 0. Remember, in our arrays, a row start at 0. And this then says, while for a file we're not at the end of the file, get information from the file. Say that again. So while we're not at the end of the file, get information for the file. Now, we're actually going to then do this line again. We're going to go to text record, and we're going to get the information from the file up to 1024 characters, or the end of a row. Why did we do that? We've just done it here, and we've not used it. Because remember, when I talked about doing CSV files, the first row will be blank. So here we are, we're just getting it to throw it away because we know the first row is blank. Here's where now we're actually into the loop, we're actually getting the rest of the data. Okay, and for that text record, because it is a line of data, it has within it the return to the beginning of the line and go down one to the new line. We don't want that data. we don't want those codes, because they are codes within the data. We don't want those codes. So this command here strips out those codes from the original record, so the new text record now doesn't have those codes. And just to acknowledge that I actually found that from Stack Overflow, and you will do the same when you're doing your SAT. If you're using code from somewhere else that you didn't actually create, then you need to acknowledge it as part of the comments in there. All right, going a bit further down, we have this array personal details, and we're going to put something into the row number we're at the moment. This stage, the very first time, it's row 0. And we're going to use this strange command called explode. What explode does is it looks for a character. In this case, the character is a comma. Remember, we've got comma delimited file. It looks for a comma, and for every time it finds a comma, it will say, oh, that's another item. So it's building a mini array. So this is this line of boxes. This is building an array. So it will explode the text record into, in this case, the 3 parts, because it will split it into 3 commas and make an array for you. So what it is doing, it is storing this array inside this array. So this will be the name, age, and suburb, a little mini array, and it's going inside here. So name, age, and suburb will be the columns. This goes into, in this case, row 0. This funny plus plus says go 1 bigger. So the row goes 1 bigger, so it becomes row 1. And this says the file move along to the next bit of the file. So the plus plus goes to the next bit of the file. And we go to the loop again. This time we do the same thing, but we're going to get another line of data out of your file. We're going to clean it up. We're going to go to position 1 this time and again explode the data into there, and we keep doing that depending on how many lines of data we have in our text file. All right, in terms of this code, terrible, partly because of copying it, and we need to do our indent. So again, go down here to edit code, and we're going to indent the code so that it's inside those brackets. And I prefer those brackets to line up a bit. So there we go. So just fixing up our indenting there. Going further down here, nice command, for each. For each does basically what it says. For everything that this happens to contain, do this. So for each of the things in array personal details, so that's for each of our rows. Okay, so for every single row, it's going to get out each row as its own little record. So basically it's saying go through the whole of the two-dimensional array, and for each item, each row, pull out just 1 row on its own. Okay, so this is the whole array, this is 1 row, and it does it. That's what the for each means. For each of the items in this, make 1 of those. And the nice thing about that, now I can put my information in here. So I need to display array record 0, that was the name, array record 1, that was the age, array record 2, and that was the suburb. And we've just made this a little neat so it looks a bit like the standard HTML code, but it's an echo statement, an echo, and we've got our TRs for table rows, inside quotes because it's going to be an echo, and a dot to join it together, and then we've done our table data, end table data, and again we've just joined them all together with dots to make one long echo. And echo is quite happy to spread it over multiple lines like this. The semicolon only goes at the end because that's actually the end of the code. All right, and again, this is our loop going on here. This is the end of our loop. You can see that from here. And then we do our echo end of the table body, echo end of the table. At the end here, I've got a comment, and we'll talk about that later. This is commented out by using the /*// And this would in fact display the information in there. Very good for debugging, and on the debugging video we'll talk about that. I hope that's explained what this is actually doing here. All right, so very clever bit of code here. It's a little bit tricky to understand this for each statement. The rest of it I think makes reasonable sense.